Peace everyone, Unmask here. Welcome back to another live critique. Hope everyone is having a lovely day. I got a lot of cool projects for us to look at for today. So I am just gonna jump right into it. Hello Susan, Cherry, good to see you. So first up, I have a piece here, colored pencil piece by Dorothy, and I'm going to assume that this is a vegan burger. And this is a tough subject. This actually seems like a fun subject to do. I never actually considered drawing a burger before, but this actually seems like a really fun project that I might actually consider doing in the future because it has a lot of different textures. There's a lot of colors that you're dealing with. So on a technical level, doing a project like this has a lot of potential to throw in some curveballs and make it rather difficult. So I'm just gonna turn on a light so you can see me a little bit better. I don't usually have these lights on when I'm doing just the live critique, so my camera appears a bit darker. Hey there, Diane, Linda, Tadek, Kizzy, good to see you. So anyways, the textures that Dorothy captured in this project are really good. The bun looks like a soft bun. It's got the sesame seeds. The cheese looks melted and shiny and stretchy. The burger has a lot of texture to it. The lettuce has a lot of texture to it. The sauce has that that wet highlights to it to make it look like sauce. So you can really clearly differentiate all of the different textures that you would come across in the burger. Now, a few things that you can improve is just the range of values that you're seeing here, because you have this cast shadow down at the bottom. I'm just going to grab this color really quick, and let's see here. Actually, I'm going to just grab an elliptical tool, and let's just go about like this, I'd say. And let's just curve this a bit, make this, yeah, there we go. And I'm just going to fill it with that color. Go with multiply, let's blur it a little bit. So I'm just going to add a little bit more depth to your drop shadow here. And I think that's a good amount of blur there. So I'll just erase it where it touches the burger here. So just by darkening the cast shadow a little bit, you're starting to enhance the light more. So here you can just barely see where you've applied the drop shadow, and by enhancing that, making it darker, you can really see that it brings the burger right off the page like immediately. You almost don't have to do anything, just adding a little bit darker value there. And then of course on the rest of the burger, I'm going to use that same color. Give me a second. I'm just going to fill the whole screen here. It'll make sense in a second. I'm going to remove it, and then I'm going to add some shadow back. So let's just bring this. And what I'm going to do is, now that I've enhanced the effect of the light source, we're really starting to see where that light source is now. It's coming from the right. And so I'm going to darken the left side of the burger, pretty much everything. I'm just going to darken it a little bit. And then the drop shadow from the bun itself, right? There'd be a little bit of a drop shadow here from the bun, and maybe a little bit from the burger, maybe a little bit from the tomato here. So the onions coming around here. So there is just adding a bit more value, and I can turn it down just a little bit. So it doesn't need to be extreme, right? It doesn't need to be extreme. I'm not trying to remake your entire drawing here, but you can see that with just these mild changes, all of a sudden the burger just stands off the page a lot more. So that's something that you want to keep in mind. Is just when you establish a light source with the cast shadow that you have on the bottom of the burger, you want to make sure that that light source is represented in the rest of your subject. So in this case, enhancing the cast shadow and just very, very subtle change to the values on that left side really make the light source feel more realistic. And that took all of 2 minutes for me to do digitally. It's going to obviously take a bit more time to do that in colored pencil, but it's just something that you want to remember. And for those of you in the art club doing the monthly masteries, this is the whole purpose of the monthly masteries. The reason we're working through them slow, I know that the subjects right now are not like the most fancy of subjects, and they're not meant to be very difficult. They're meant to constantly like remind you of the light source and establishing that light source on different objects, different shapes of objects. So just keep that in mind when you're doing the monthly masteries, so that you can use that same mindset, those same ideas and themes in your artwork like this. And I was able to do this without any reference. I don't have the reference photo for this project. It's just having a little bit of an understanding of what the light is going to be doing to this object that I'm able to sort of just make it up on the fly. So anyways, otherwise, great project, Dorothy. Thank you for the submission. Up next is Tina. She has this watercolor with some pastel, which is cool. And actually, hold on. Oh, I put that on the same layer. Okay. Yeah, so she used this more as a character reference. As you can see, she didn't copy the photograph exactly, so she used it as a character reference, which is really cool. And I like the way that she used a border on her artwork, and then she extended the trees outside of the border to try to make them feel like they're growing outside of the frame. I think you should have also done that on the top, by the way. Have it coming out of the top and the bottom with the trees that are really close up. But that's a really cool artistic way to use framing to create like this unique sort of illusion in your work. The colors are wonderful. The trees look great. Everything about this project is really fantastic. There's not a whole lot that I can even say you would need to change. You have a lot of really nice subtle colors on your trees. So let me just pinpoint that really quick. You know what I'm talking about here? And this is something that a lot of you can learn from. It's like you see these like yellows and some of these browns and tans and everything that are sort of spotty on the trees, and you can see it in the reference photo. So she really, really used her reference photo well to capture certain elements of the color and the shapes and everything of the trees to create her own original scene. Because as you can see, these trees are not the same. Some of them have similar shapes and placement, but overall you can see that she just used this reference photo more as a character reference photo and sort of designed her own forest here. The other thing that you did is that you didn't make your forest as dense, and that was probably just an artistic choice, because you can see the sky here. You can see the sky in the back, and I like that you didn't go too blue with the sky. Going too blue with the sky probably wouldn't look as good, so I like that you kept it nice and soft, kept it in the distance. So that looks really good. The textures on the grass, obviously your grass looks more stomped down and not as like in the reference photo, it's just like knee-high grass from every direction, whereas you sort of focused more around the texture of the grass right around the base of the tree. And I think that really there's a couple bald spots here in the grass, like just this area here And this area here, I feel like I feel like either make a path, like I think a nice path going through here, like using some perspective to create like this nice dirt path walking through the forest. I think that would have really helped make the bald spot in the grass there not feel so empty. And then this spot over here, this spot doesn't really need anything if you have this central path sort of drawing the viewer's eye into. This is a beautiful scene. I would like a little bit more, um, since you're not copying the reference photo exactly, add a little bit more of a story to it. I think that will go a long way. You could have added some flowers to break up the sort of the empty space of the grass, but otherwise it came out really, really well. Only those couple little things would I say leave room for improvement. So some flowers, maybe a dirt path, something to give the viewer a bit more to focus on. Because as a photograph, it's just, even as a photograph, it's not an amazing photograph because what is it that you're even photographing in the picture here? It's sort of just a forest, and there's no animals, there's nothing that's catching the viewer's eye, you know what I mean? And you don't want to do that in your artwork. You want something to be a bit more catchy. Let's see. Hey there, Remy. Chandri, good to see you. um, Joanna, good to see you as well. Okay, alrighty. Let's move on to Zayar. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that correct. Zayar, if you're in chat, just let me know. This is just a lovely flower with a butterfly. And this project came out really well. This is a colored pencil project, and this one looks really nice. I think the best part of this project is for sure the petals of the flower. So these petals right here look really, really good. I love the blue and the white. And I especially love how well the paper is covered. If you look at the petals just themselves, you don't really see any of the texture of the colored pencils. However, if you look at the butterfly and the stem and the bud of the flower here, you can still see a lot of the graininess from the colored pencil. And I don't think that that serves this artwork very well because the petals look so good. The petals look very smooth and soft. The amount of layers look heavy and thick, and that makes the petals look really, really nice. And I think that that same level of coverage and smoothing would benefit the rest of this project, especially the butterfly. The butterfly, now their wings have that sort of dusty look. The butterfly wings tend to have, actually, this might be a moth. Yeah, I think this might be a moth instead of a butterfly. But let's just let's just go with butterfly because most people are um, probably going to identify it as a butterfly. But I'm like 90% sure it's actually a moth, not a butterfly. But anyways, their wings sort of have that powdery look to them, right? So a bit of that colored pencil texture actually doesn't look bad in the wings because it leaves that sort of subtle texture to them. But for the stem of the flower, you can see it's real grainy from the pencils. And if you used some solvent to blend that out, it's going to look as smooth as the petals. And then same thing here. Nice use of line direction to create underlying texture. But again, there's still a bit of the graininess from the pencil. And if the entire flower was silky smooth, like the petals are, then the contrasting texture of the moth is just going to look that much better. And it's going to look that much more realistic. So that's really all I can say about this one. It's a really lovely piece. I would just like to see uh, some more smoothness of the grain of the colored pencils. That's about it really. But fantastic work, Zayar. Thank you for the submission. Up next we have a couple pieces from Dodek, and everybody's going to recognize a portrait drawn by Darek. We've been seeing his portraits for some time now. Actually, I think it's been like almost a year. But this is a really great portrait. And one thing that I like to see, I love to see you guys improve over the weeks and months of getting to see your artwork all the time. And this is a great improvement for your portraits, Darek, because the hair, it stands out right away. As soon as I saw this, I was like, well done. That hair looks really, really good. It has a lot of body to it. It doesn't look like spaghetti hair. I love all the subtle flyaways everywhere, a lot of movement, and the length of it. The length of it is makes it difficult, right? Because the longer the hair, the more likely you are to turn it into spaghetti. And there is no spaghetti here. A funny thing is I actually just had spaghetti for lunch too. So I'm really familiar with what spaghetti looks like, and this is not spaghetti hair. So for those of you that don't know, I kind of wish I had your previous portrait, Darek. I don't have it available right now, like immediately. But I would love to show the contrast between your last portrait that had a little bit of spaghetti hair and this portrait, because what Darek is doing here is he's focusing on the shapes. So look at this really dark shape that comes down here, like this big dark shape here. This is giving the hair a lot of volume, and you don't have to worry so much about the individual strands of hair. Look at this shape here. This shape not only defines the jawline a little bit, but it also, again, creates nice volume in the hair. Great squiggly diamonds. So the squiggly diamonds here are fantastic. You have some of these single strands of hair cutting through. That's exactly what you want. So you focus on these large shapes, and that's how you get hair to look like this. And it looks fantastic. Yeah, this portrait looks absolutely phenomenal. The other thing I noticed, I zoomed in a little bit, and I saw that you got these lines. Great use of these directional lines coming from the center of the pupil to create some subtle texture. And aside from everything looking great, I did have one comment on the eyes, because I don't have access to the reference photo here. So I imagine that the eyes were rather dark in the reference photo, which is why you drew them dark the way that you have them. And what I would suggest is not drawing them exactly the way you may see them in the reference photo. Use your artistic intuition a bit to perhaps darken the tops of the iris a little bit to create that cast shadow from the upper eyelid. And don't be afraid to brighten the bottom part a bit. Okay? So don't be afraid to change the eye look and create a little bit of extra light inside of them. So I'm just going to throw in just a little bit of a highlight there. And so here's what the eyes look as you have them drawn, which everything looks great. It looks natural. But if you darken that shape, and I talked about this, I think the last live critique doing eyes, if you darken that and you just brighten the bottom part of the iris a little bit, you can see it just adds a little bit more life into the eyes. So here's before, here's after, and I only made a subtle change, and you can expand beyond the reference photo, because there's no perfect photo, so you can use your artistic ability your artistic license to manipulate it a little bit, just to add a little bit more life into the eyes. You know what I mean? And I wouldn't change anything else. It looks like she has this center lip piercing right here. I imagine what that dot is. Um, if that is the case, if she does have that piercing there, I would probably actually add that in. Like if either remove the hole in your drawing or add the lip ring in. Um, that's what I would also suggest that because that's what that dot right there looks like to me, based on my experience of seeing people with that piercing. So yeah, again, here's the before, the after, and I don't think I uh, made any changes that are too digital. Like I don't want to change it too digitally. So yeah, fantastic portrait. Thank you so much for the submission. Great job on the hair. And this is another one from Dodek. This is his very first pastel, very first pastel painting. So this is called a macaw, right? Is this bird a macaw? I'm not really familiar with birds, but I think it's called a macaw. Um, but anyways, this came out great. Really good texture on the feathers. I love to see all of these directional lines. You're using directional lines really, really well, which doesn't surprise me since you're so good at doing hair. Nice blurry background, great colors. Um, yeah, there's not really much I can say about this. Like again, the eye looks a little bit too two-dimensional. Um, a parrot, a macaw, I think they're the similar or something. I don't know. Like I said, I have no idea what like the names of birds. But yeah, so again with the eye, use your artistic license to change the eye. So the light's coming from above. The light's coming from above, but that doesn't change the fact that more likely than not you're going to have a little bit of a shadow towards the top, something like this. And then the colors, let's just grab this bluish color. The colors in the eye, don't be afraid to add a little bit more color to the iris there. Um, and then the bottom part as well. The bottom part tends to be a bit darker down here since the eye is a spherical shape. And then maybe I can go just a tiny bit darker this part here. Now I'm not too familiar with the eyes of birds, but I imagine that there's some texture, so you can add some texture lines. Most irises have some kind of texture, so this sort of directional texture thing. Darken my brush just a bit. Oh, the color's too dark, that's why. Too light, I mean. Yeah. So I think the birds probably still have some texture, so you can add a little bit of texture here, and then of course, depending on where your light direction is, which if I had to guess, I'd say the direction is probably above the bird. So you can have like you can have a little bit of a you can add a little bit of light that doesn't exist. So here's before, here's after. The eye just automatically looks a little bit more three-dimensional. Um, so yeah, before, after. That's really about the only thing. The other thing is just make sure you're covering the paper here. The where the skin is white, use use whatever colors you need to get some of those shadows put in. Again, focus more on the foundational shapes first. Add your texture on top. I know it like when the spot, the area there of the bird's skin is very bright, almost white. I don't have the reference photo, so I can't tell you how close you are to the actual color around the eye. But if you do it with like these gray shapes first, establish the sort of the wrinkles of the skin and add the texture on top. Just make sure that you cover the paper. Um, and then this area will just look more realistic overall. But aside from that, yeah, it looks great. You probably add a little bit more blue. Let me do that really quick. Probably add some more blue to the beak here, reflecting reflecting the environment a bit more. The beak could be probably a bit more blue, reflecting the sky. Otherwise, yeah, very, very good. Thank you so much, Darek. Up next is Lisa. She submitted a really beautiful watercolor project last time as well. And this one is even better in my opinion. This one's fantastic. I love the colors. I love the light that you were able to capture here. The background seems a little bright, but not so bright that I think it needs to be changed in any way. It's sort of just because it's so close to the viewer, the colors still remain rather bright. The hands look good. I recall you had a hand in your previous one that wasn't as good as these hands. These hands look pretty good. Yeah, hands are difficult. You're doing this in watercolor. I can't really say much about your technique in watercolor because I don't have any techniques in watercolor. I've only used them like once or twice. But this project came out really, really good. The flowers down here, beautiful texture. Just, it looks great. Yeah, it looks great. I think the only thing that really stands out to me in this one, again, going back to the eyes. Now, given the really stark lighting in this project, because the light it's a natural sunlight, so it's going to give you some harsh shadows, which you sort of capture here, and especially around the eyes. The eyes just feel a little bit dark to me, and I think you probably actually captured how dark those shadows would be in the reference photo. The problem is that darkness doesn't really happen anywhere else. And so either match that level of darkness in the rest of the painting or don't do it around the eyes. She has a little bit of a raccoon eyes here that just sort of, they feel really sunken in because of how dark they are. So this shadow here should be very similar to the shadow underneath her chin. Like this shadow here should be also really dark because of the sunlight. So you can see that if I darken this shadow a little bit, the way you have it darkened around the eyes don't feel as sunken in, because now you're starting to see some shadows on the rest of on the rest of this girl or woman that create the same level of depth. And so now the eyes don't feel as sunken in because they're sort of they match the rest of the skin elsewhere. I imagine the arm here is rather dark as well. So I kind of like it like this, just adding a little bit more depth to some of these shadows. The other thing is same thing that I said with Dotx project about the eyes being dark. If you come in here, I'm just going to zoom in a little bit. So you have really dark pupils. If you darken that top part, and then just add a little bit of light. I'll just grab her skin color a little bit, like right here. Just very lightly. Just give the irises a little bit of a shine. And then maybe it looks like you used some white gouache in this project. So I think you could probably get away with like a highlight here. Using some gouache, just a little white dot. And it's just going to make the eyes, yeah, it just adds just a little bit of light to the eyes, you know? So here's the before, here's the after. Either lighten the shadows around the eyes or darken the other shadows to match the level of value range. And I wouldn't really change anything else about this project. It came out so good that I don't want to change it too much. This is cool painting. Thank you so much, Lisa. All right, up next is Susan. Got a couple projects here from Susan. She did the Tiger Eye pastel project, and this came out fantastic. I honestly don't have anything to say about this. You knocked it out of the park. All of the uh, all of the changes in the oranges and like the reds that you added, the direction, all of the directions look great. The little flyaways, the little flyaway hairs look amazing. Like everything about this looks great. I honestly wouldn't change a single thing. Um, you didn't do any of like the salt and pepper. So there's a little bit of salt and pepper of the fur here and here, but even without that, it still just looks so good that you don't necessarily need it. Remember, for those of you that may have missed the project, the secret to doing salt and pepper hair is actually very easy. All you do is you zigzag. Let me get a little bit larger brush. So you zigzag like this and you create mountains, right? So you create mountains like this, uneven mountains, and then you just do it again. So this is the pattern of salt and pepper fur. And I showed you this in this project. So if you want to do salt and pepper fur, doesn't matter what the colors are. It could be black and orange like a tiger. It could be black and white like a million breeds of dogs. This is all you have to do for salt and pepper fur. And I'll literally take this pattern here, drag it over, put it, you just have to do the pattern in the direction of the fur texture. So, and then I'll just copy that a couple times. Just try to line the pattern up. Right? Boom. Salt and pepper fur. I can't prove it any more than that of how easy it actually is. That's literally the pattern of salt and pepper fur, is just zigzaggy mountains in the direction of the fur texture. And you can see just how much texture that adds to the fur and sort of breaks it up. Now it doesn't look as natural now because I didn't draw it in the direction that the fur is going. So just real quick recap. So if the fur direction is flowing like this, the way that the tiger's fur is right there where I added that, then your zigzag pattern must zigzag parallel to these lines. And then as you move it, it changes directions. So you see how it's pointed more this way here, and it's pointed more vertical here. So all you have to do is zigzag in the flow of the direction. And that's probably the trickier part, is zigzagging with the fur direction in mind. But you don't have to do it like real fast. You can take your time to zigzag and just make it random. Just that's the other important feature, is you have to make it random. But aside from that, yeah, don't change a thing, Susan. It's fantastic. All right, I got another one here from Susan. She did the orange project. The photograph is a little blurry, so Susan, in the future, if you could just be a little bit more careful submitting blurry pictures, because it just makes it really hard for me to tell like what's good, what's not, because when it's not in focus, it's just more difficult. But based off of this picture, everything here looks good. Like the colors look good, the background, the value ranges. I love to see that purple, red, magenta transitioning from the shadow. So the color and the transition of the orange looks really good. Now for the texture of the highlight in the orange, remember that the texture of the highlight in the orange are dashed lines that sort of create a circle, and they get more dense towards the center. And then over here, they're more dashed lines. Okay, just remember that the texture of the highlight is not a flat object. And you may have this in your project here, but I can't tell because it's out of focus. So just remember that it's dashed lines that as it gets brighter, it's just the dashed lines are getting closer and closer together. But otherwise, very good. Okie dokie. Up next, I have a couple projects here from Diane. Diane also did the pastel project of portrait of Udon. Udon is hiding in his cave. You can't really see him. He was poking his head out a little bit. I was trying to get him to poke his head out a little bit more before the live stream, but he just wasn't having it. He seemed to have tucked himself back in there. You can barely see him. If I go to the big cam here. So yeah, he's in there. You can't really see him, but yeah, he's all tucked back in there. But she did a different pose. So we sort of voted on which photo we were going to use of Udon to do the Udon project. And she chose this photo, which is one of my favorite photos that I captured of him. And the colors really, really well done. Everything here is really well done. There's just a couple anatomy issues with Udon here. So I grabbed the reference photo that she used here, and I tried to overlay them a little bit. So there's two sections that are just a little bit off. Let me grab a brush really quick. So right here on his head, he has this shape. I'm exaggerating a little bit. So he has this sort of curve to his face. So he has his snout here, and then his other eye, and then his puffy cheeks. So he has really puffy cheeks because their jaws are extremely strong. So it's like all muscle here. It's like all muscle right here in their jaws. And so when we have a look, we're missing this curve of his face a little bit, and it's more like perhaps just lost it in the log a little bit. So it's more like this shape. It sort of has like this white outline almost. So there, we just have that snout coming out a little bit. So that's that shape. That's that shape that you sort of just missed a little bit. This is exaggerated, but you can see that subtle curve there. The other thing is his puffy cheek. You have it a little bit more like a jaw here. Like you have this real angular jaw, and it's just a bit softer. Just a bit softer. It doesn't protrude that much. And oops, didn't mean to do that. His mouth doesn't go back that far. So you have a little bit too much mouth. He has a big mouth, trust me. He has a big mouth. But you see his mouth stops just behind his eye, like right there. And then your mouth is a little bit too far back. So just if I erase that a little bit, there his head just looks a little bit closer. His eye seems to be a little bit further back than it should be as well. But yeah, not too bad. The other thing is that you have his lower jaw. So his lower jaw is not visible up front. Not quite visible here. There. Yeah. So just really, really small lines, and his head is probably really small on your painting, Diane. So it's tough to get those shapes when it's so tiny. The other thing is, so this black shape here, this shadow, this is a curve in his body. So there's a little bit of a curve missing here. A little bit of a curve. So you can see that. You can see that here. You can see that curve right there. So his spine is coming back and then curving back and forth. And yours, you have this smooth line all the way around. So you just want to add that little bit of dent there to make that make that spine curving. The other small thing is the shadow on his body. So this side of his body is darker than this side of his body. And we can see that in the reference photo pretty clearly here. So this is where the light is hitting, and this side is all shadow. So if we just grab this color, we'll see how dark it is. So this color here is like a just flat out dark brown. Like it looks yellow, doesn't it? When you're looking at it, it's like, oh, that looks so yellow, but it's not. That is baby diarrhea brown. Definitely not yellow. Sorry, I have to describe it that way. And then your color is more yellow. So you can see the value difference here quite a bit. And so you know, that is what helps create the sensation of light here on his body. And because this side is only slightly darker than this side here, it doesn't quite create that three-dimensional look on his body in this area. It's really just this area here. So yeah, learning to trust the color picker is, trust me, I'll like double, quadruple check the colors and values of things. And even when I do that, I still get them wrong. I try to push it, and I still just, I have the hardest time. So, don't be too hard on yourself, because even I do it. This is a super difficult subject. Udon is not easy to draw. You have his pattern, obviously. You have his pattern, and then you have his scale texture, and that's a tricky thing. And speaking of scale texture, you did awesome. Yeah, the scale texture here that you added on top of your colors looks really, really well done. I think in the reference, notice how the scale texture changes from a dark color to a highlight up here on the spine a little bit. So up here, the role is reversed. So on the side of his body, if you look on the side of his body here, the texture is the dark color, but on the top here, the texture is a light color. So you want to make sure that you switch that, especially you can see it really well right here. See the highlights, how the scale texture is a highlight, not a shadow. Here you have, this is where it transitions, this is where it gets tricky. But here you can see that it's the dark color. So you have that yellow base color, and then that zigzag of the pattern being a darker color than the base color, but up here it's switched. So you have to switch from creating the texture with that darker or that light brown color to using white. That's going to create that shiny effect of the scales. That's what makes his scales look shiny here. Whereas on yours, you have a little bit of the highlights right here in this darker brown, but you also need them through the yellow running through this part. But yeah, it's tricky, but you did a fantastic job. Alrighty. And then Diane also did the tiger here. Again, the tiger looks fantastic. I can see the zigzag pattern for the subtle salt and pepper. Your tiger's fur looks very, very soft. Like it looks, your tiger's fur looks like it was brushed. It's very soft. That softness is caused by the lack of intersection of the colors here. So it's not a bad thing. I mean, it's a look. It's a look, but if you wanted the more rugged realism that the tiger's fur actually is, then you just need to take these shapes here, take your black lines and your white lines, and you need to bleed them into the rest of the fur. So they need to come outside of the shapes. And this is going to give you more of the realistic looking tiger fur, and then also with like the white, that's going to come across and cut through these dark shapes. The orange is going to cut through into the black and all of that. So these shapes need to have intersections with different colors of strands of hair. Um, but like I said, it looks amazing like this. It just looks really, really like soft fur. And that softness is caused by the lack of intersection of the colors. And if you want to go for more realism, then you have to bridge those gaps between the dark shapes. No, it looks great though. Yeah, it looks great. All right. Up next, we've got a couple projects from Cherry here, and this she already finished the statue project. She works a lot faster than me, I guess, and she did it in colored pencils. And this looks fantastic. I mean, I think you mentioned which paper you used, but I forget off the top of my head. This sort of looks like the Strathmore toned gray. If I had to guess, I'd say Strathmore toned gray based on the fibers of the paper. That's how recognizable that paper is to me, as I can tell just by the fibers in the paper. Um, I would say toned gray. It doesn't look like the toned tan to me, but it could be. But that's 100% textbook Strathmore fiber right there. Cherry, let me know if I'm right because I'm real curious. Yeah, this came out super good. This came out super good. Very smooth skin, um, and then the differentiation of the textures, like in the stones, the little embroidery detailing on the blanket down here. Really, really great folds, like fantastic folds in the blanket. That's just not easy to do. This shadow here, that shadow's tricky. That shadow's tricky. So you just did an amazing job here on the statue. You're also it's the toned tan. Okay, so it's just the picture. I've always noticed that the toned tan um, is so hard to take a photo of and actually capture the color of the paper. I have the hardest time capturing the color of the toned tan paper. Um, it always ends up looking like the toned gray, like this one. Like I was leaning more towards the toned gray, but I can see the toned tan in the picture. Um, yeah, honestly, there's not really much I can say about this. You just did such a fantastic job on it that like where do I even make a correction? Um, yeah, it looks just like what it's supposed to look like, and I don't really have any input on how to do it better if you already did it perfect, you know? But yeah, fantastic job, Cherry. I have another project here by Cherry, and she did this pastel pastel painting here, which again looks really, really great. Um, I don't know if the photograph of your artwork, I don't know if the photograph altered the colors a little bit. The border here to me looks blue, but if it's supposed to be white, let me know. If the border here that you have around your artwork is supposed to be white, let me know so I can fix that. I gotta separate I gotta separate the pictures here because I put them on the same layer. I want to know if the border is supposed to be white or not. Because it does, to me, it seems like there's more blue in this image than the reference. Like the green looks very blue. It is white. Okay, I'm gonna correct that then. Let me color correct that because Yeah, that already looks way better. Yeah. It's pulling out so much yellow. The photo that I have here. So, boom. There. That looks 1,000 times better. I didn't want to change it because I wasn't 100% sure, but I was like 90% sure. Um, it's still a little touch of blue, but I can't add any more yellow into this project here because it's going to change it too much. Um, yeah, that looks 1,000 times better. Okay. Um, yeah, there's really not a whole lot to say about this one because it's just so well done. I think there's probably like two things that I want to say about this one. The first thing I want to say is that I like that you dulled the colors in the background. I don't know if that was a conscious choice or not, but you can see that in the reference photo, the colors are still just as vibrant as they are in the foreground. And I like that you dulled them in the painting because they don't do anything. The background's not important. And I want to also say that I kind of wish that you would have moved the flowers up a little bit higher because the background is not important. And you actually have more background in your painting than the reference photo has. So I would like that much less background. I'm just gonna move the border down. Um, and I'm gonna delete this. I would like less background because that would have centered the flowers right there, right in the center. And you actually had just a little bit more. I feel like it should be 30% background and 60%, 33% background, 66% flowers and water. Whereas I felt like it was closer to like 40-60. Um, and so less background, and then you could have added a bit more water if you needed to make that shift. Um, Otherwise, I wouldn't change anything uh, about the background. Like you have good blurriness to it. There's no need to like change anything there. I just felt like there was a little bit too much background. And then the second thing that I wanted to mention was the values in the water. So you have like these nice darks here, but you can see that the darks also exist in this part of the water as well. So a little bit of dark shapes like here. You have a little bit of a dark shape there, but it's not as dark. So darker shapes in the water. I think that would go a long way. I think maybe I can even motion blur. Yeah, I can hide those brush strokes a little bit. So those shapes in the water create more reflection, um, or more of the illusion of reflection. So other than that, this project came out really, really good. So fantastic work, Cherry. All right, next one that Cherry has. Oh no, that one I already talked about. Okay, up next is Norlene. And Norlene, I'm not gonna lie, when I saw this, I thought that you went to my Instagram and just copy and pasted my own artwork because you you did such an amazing job on this that when I first saw it, I was like, you can't just erase my signature and then replace it with yours. Like you did such a good job on it. I genuinely just thought that I was looking at my own drawing. Um, and I was like, I didn't have anything to say. I was just like, it was just so good. Um, and the wheels look shiny. The paint is nice and smooth. I can just tell that you took your time on this project. You really covered the paper. The grill on the car looks fantastic. The wheels, I can see the subtle texture. I don't know if you guys can see it, but look at that. See the treads? You can see the tire treads. Just so good, so good. Um, I think the only thing that I'm gonna nitpick on is this little section of the spoked wheels. It's just a little bit wonky. It's just a little bit wonky, and I think that maybe it's just the thickness of a couple of these lines, like this shape here. Maybe if it was just a little bit thinner, like I'm I I I'm just nitpicking because you just did an amazing job on this car, and it's like what am I even gonna say about it, you know? Because even at a distance, like you don't really notice it. You still identify it as to what it is, right? So uh, I don't know what you need a critique for. It's just so good. Yeah. Um, Great use of that transitionary turquoise color here for the complement of the orange. I like that you followed like what I did. Um, yeah, just looks great. It just looks great. If there's anything about this car, Norleen, um, that you were uncertain of, let me know and I will address that specific thing. But otherwise, I there's not really anything for me to say here because it's just so well done. Yeah, I couldn't seem to get the spokes right. Yeah, it's just a little bit off, but I mean, the smallest changes can sort of make the spokes look better. Just in that one area. Everywhere else they look good. It's just this one area right here. And this area was really tricky to do because you also see the rotor, um, the brake right behind it, like the brakes right behind this, and the axle a little bit. But yeah, awesome, awesome job. Up next, I have Marcy. She submitted this tempera paint. Now, I gotta be honest, I've only ever heard of tempera paint. I don't think I've ever seen, I'm not that I'm aware of a tempera painting. Um, and this is a fun style here. I like this style a lot from Marcy. I love it. It almost looks like a more opaque watercolor to me. I at first I thought it was watercolor, um, and I love the little splashes of water. The composition of this is really good. I love the colors, all these pinks and purples and blues in the skin of the hippo work really, really well. The only the only thing I could imagine improving on this is identifying the eyes just a little bit and possibly adding some highlights to the hippo itself to make it look wet. Yeah, tempera is the egg white paint. Yeah, it's like egg white or something like that. So not a paint that I would use, but like if you had just a sparkle in the eyes, maybe just one eye, maybe not that bright. Let me choose this color instead. Maybe like a sparkle in the eye. I don't know. Arguably not worth it. Maybe just one eye sparkle. It's hard to work on uh, the more stylized stuff, but I don't know. Like watermarks, little splashes, that could be something that you could have added to make the hippo look wet, or just brighter highlights somewhere. Bright highlights. Not too bright, obviously, but um, I'm just trying to think of how to improve this, which is tough because it's really well done. Um, and I like the style of it a lot. So artistically, I don't have much that I can say to improve this because it did come out really well. I apologize if I missed anybody's question in chat. I just realized that I have not read chat for like a while. So, what's my opinion on the best way to make bokeh backgrounds? So I've done a few tutorials on doing blurry backgrounds. It's different if you are using colored pencils versus pastel, obviously, but the important feature is to just avoid color separation too much. Um, because when we look at a photograph that has a really blurry bokeh background, we see all these circles and we think, I need to make circles. Now, making the circles is something that you need to do, but they don't need to be separated circles. They're blurry around the edges. So that's the only thing. So color separation is something that you have to be careful about doing. With colored pencils, I actually use a circle stencil, and I've shown this a couple times in projects where I use a color stencil and I fill that circle in with a really light layer of colored pencil, and then I'll just use like solvent to blend it, and that can help you create that that bokeh effect. All right. Hopefully I didn't miss any other questions. I apologize if I missed your question. If I did, feel free to ask it again. Yeah, it does look like a book illustration. All right. The last projects that I have, believe it or not, are actually just the monthly masteries, and I only have 3 monthly masteries here. Was there anybody else that had a monthly mastery? Because I have Norleen, Linda, and Cherry. Anyways, so this is monthly mastery number 4. This is from last month. And Norleen, you did this one in pastel. And the only things missing here in this project is the reflections. So remember in monthly mastery 4, we add reflections. So I actually did a full tutorial of the monthly mastery for last month. So there's this reflection here, and then there's also this reflection here. So you missed these reflections, or at least I don't see them in the photograph. So that's the only thing that you missed here. Also, just make sure that you try to avoid haloing here. So just get little sharper up close to the edge here with your number 4 value, or number 3 value, sorry. I don't think the circle tools are sold as architecture tools. I don't think architecture would have much use out of circle stencils, although I'm sure that they do occasionally use them. But I just have like a cheap set of circle stencils that I don't even know where I got them. All right. Next is Linda's monthly mastery. Linda, you did a really good job here. I see the reflections. See the reflection here. Norleen, that you missed in the reflection here. Again, just a reminder, like you don't have to fill in the full background like this. If you want to crop this, like if you want to crop this to here so that you don't have so much background, that's totally fine. Like if you just want to crop it to that size and not fill in all of this, because I do want to make sure that you know you're really filling in everything to the full potential of both the medium that you're using and the paper that you're using. And that way you don't have to spend all this time filling in this whole side right here unnecessarily. So you can crop it as much as you want to do as little coloring as possible, because it's much more about, it's much more about these shapes here than it is the background. But the reason I stress in each monthly mastery that I want you to get 100% full coverage as much as you can is that as you, depending on what paper you're choosing to work on, which colored pencils you're choosing to use, you are going to become more and more familiar with that medium and with those supplies by pushing the limits. The more you push the limit, the more you're going to understand the medium. And so that's why I always stress with the monthly masteries. I know that it, like, filling in this space with one single color, like, there's no there's really not a lot of added benefit. If you even wanted to, like, if you wanted to crop it like this, like, and maybe just have like this kind of shape where you don't color in this, you just want this. If you want to do it that way, you can do it that way as well. I just want everybody on the same page with the monthly masteries. Just make sure that you're maximizing your layers and you're getting 100% as covered as possible. That way you know what it feels like to do it and you know what it looks like when you do it. But the edges here look really good. Yeah, this looks good. I'm not like saying that you didn't do it correct or anything, Linda. I'm just emphasizing that for everybody in general doing the monthly masteries. Let's see. Next month, the monthly mastery is going to be a bit more complex with the shapes. I think there's going to be like 4 or 5 shapes that you're going to do. So it's going to be more to draw if you're practicing your drawing skills, or if you're just getting better at like tracing it and transferring it. However, so there will be more shapes. So you're going to have to deal with more reflections. You're going to have to deal with a bit more complex cast shadows. So cast shadows that are cast onto objects. So changing the value of the cast shadow and all of that stuff, how cast shadows when casted on a bright object versus a dark object, all those things. So they'll start to get a little bit more complex next month. And the last monthly mastery I have Cherries. This looks fantastic, Cherry. Yeah, this very nice sharp edges, wonderful edges. Yeah, the edges look fantastic. And this is a good example of cropping the drawing so you're not, just filling in a lot of the background for no reason. I think somebody asked me if they used a paper, if they used like a gray paper that represented their number 3 value, if they could just leave the background blank. I'm pretty sure somebody asked me that. I don't have a problem with that. Of course, I don't want you to go out and like buy paper just for the monthly masteries. But yeah, just cropping it like this. And like I said, you can even crop this area here. You can do a slant. You can slant that crop. Sorry, yeah. So if you wanted to crop it sideways like this, you're more than welcome to do that. Just so you don't have more unnecessary background to do. But this is actually, Cherry, this is one of the best monthly masteries that I've seen so far as like the really crisp, clean edges. This one is really, really good. Great reflection here, reflection down here. Really, really well done. All right. That is the last project for today. So before I head out, are there any questions that anybody has? In the meantime, I'll just tell you about my day yesterday. So yesterday the weather was like super nice, and so I met my friend Krzysztof at the park to play chess, and we were playing for a little while. And this older guy, he walked up and he was watching us play. And so after we finished the game, we asked if he wanted to play a game, and I let Christoph play him. So I stood there and watched, and um, he agreed to play, but he said that he didn't want to play with the clock. And we didn't think anything of it. We're like, yeah, sure, fine. You don't have to use the clock if you don't want to. So an hour later, the game is still happening. We're like, it's starting to get cold. It's 2000. Usually I leave around 2000, and he took like, for every move past like move 8, he took like 10 minutes to think about the move. Even if the move was like something real simple, like I remember he was in one position, he was sitting there thinking, this older guy, for like 10-15 minutes he was sitting there thinking. And I kept checking my clock, like on my phone, to see what time it was, and like 10 minutes goes by. In my head I was like, dude, will you just castle? Like there's nothing, there's no fancy move here. Just castle and get on with it. And it just got way out of hand. Like, to say the least, we really regretted not making him use the clock for the game, because the game took over an hour and a half, and it didn't even finish because we had to leave. Like, it was 20:30, and my friend Christoph was like, I have to leave. Like, his mom called him and needed something or something, and he had to leave like right there. And we didn't get to play anymore because this guy took like a million years to play, not even play one game, because they were just like, well, let's just call it a draw. And then we left. And I was like, we're like, what was this guy doing? It wasn't a world championship match or anything. It was just, playing some random person in a park, and he took an hour and a half. I just couldn't believe it. I was like, every move was like 10-minute thing. I was like, dude, you can't calculate every possible move. You have to just make a move. I just, at the very least, the weather was really nice. So, yeah, that's the last time we let somebody play without a clock, though. Goodness gracious, just can't do it. Yeah, I bring my clock. Like, I have a chess clock that I bring when I go to play chess. Um, but he didn't want to use it. He asked to play without the clock, and now I understand why, because he likes to spend 20 minutes to think of every move. Am I going to be doing art critique individual videos? Yes, I will be. I will be doing those. I didn't do any this week because I was just real busy with stuff. But and by stuff I mean like chess and just other things. But yeah, I'm going to be doing some individual critiques later. Probably do like one or two next week or something like that. So if you didn't get a chance to submit something for this project, if you email it to me, you send it to me on Discord or whatnot, then I can potentially do an individual critique. The individual critiques, I like to seek out projects on something that I haven't really talked about a lot, or I talked about a lot and I just want to like do a more in-depth recap of some of the ideas. But yeah, if the project is just too good, I probably won't do a critique of it, because if I don't have anything to critique because it's like perfectly done or whatever, then there's not a whole lot people can learn from that. It's just more or less a video appreciating your good artwork. Yeah, there's the lesson. Yeah, he studied every move. Yeah, for like 20 minutes. You are very welcome, Susan. I'm glad you guys enjoyed the live critique, or at least I hope you did. I hope you learned something. I always enjoy looking at your artwork, and doing these critiques. So for those of you unfamiliar with the live critique lessons, I do them the first Friday of every month, but I'm doing it this Friday because last week I had a chess tournament. But I don't believe I have a chess tournament the first Friday of next month. So that's when the next critique will be. If you want to submit your artwork, just make sure you join either the Discord or the Facebook group. I'm pretty sure I have links for those both in the description. And enjoy the rest of your week. Have a great weekend. I'll see you all back on Monday. Take care. Peace.